If you're over 50 and your belly fat sits mostly around your midsection, hard, high, stubborn, the kind that doesn't move no matter how many crunches you do, I need you to hear this clearly. That fat is not lazy. It's not just aging. It is a hormone factory. And right now, it might be running on a stress signal your body has been broadcasting since your 40s, one you never noticed because it doesn't feel like stress. It feels like exhaustion. It feels like waking up tired. It feels like a waistband that keeps tightening even though your diet hasn't changed. Here's the mistake almost everyone over 60 makes without knowing it. They attack this fat with harder workouts, longer cardio sessions. And here's the part that will genuinely surprise you for this specific kind of fat. That approach can make things worse. Intense exercise, done at the wrong time of day, on an already stressed system, pours more of the exact hormone that built the fat in the first place. The hormone is cortisol. And visceral fat, the fat wrapped around your organs, the fat that makes your midsection firm rather than soft, has a density of cortisol receptors far higher than fat anywhere else on your body. Your belly isn't just storing energy. It's listening for stress signals, and when it hears them, it grows. By the end of this video, you're going to understand 5 things almost nobody explains correctly. First, why visceral fat behaves like an endocrine organ, manufacturing its own stress hormones in a feedback loop that gets worse the longer it runs. Second, why your cortisol rhythm, not your calorie count, determines whether your body burns fat or hoards. Third, a specific window in your morning biology, lasting under an hour, that either shuts this loop down or locks it in place for the entire day. Fourth, a precise, gentle, joint-safe sequence that interrupts the loop at 3 separate points simultaneously. And fifth, why doing this correctly can improve not just your waistline, but your memory and your mood. Because the same hormone eating your midsection is quietly wearing down a part of your brain. And stay through to the end, because there's an X factor, one free habit, 30 seconds long, that roughly doubles what this entire protocol does for your body. Most people never hear about it. Let's get into the biology. The fat that talks back. Arthur was 68 when his doctor told him his waist measurement mattered more than his weight on the scale. Arthur didn't understand it. He'd lost 11 pounds that year. His weight was down. But his waist, his actual midsection, hadn't moved an inch. He was doing everything right, and his body wasn't listening. What Arthur didn't know is that the fat sitting around his organs wasn't behaving like ordinary fat. It was behaving like a gland. Here is the mechanism, and I want you to really sit with this, because once you understand it, the whole rest of this video will make sense. Visceral fat cells contain an enzyme called 11-beta-hydroxysteroid dehydrogenase type 1. That enzyme's job is to convert inactive cortisone into active cortisol right there, locally, inside the fat tissue itself. Visceral fat doesn't just receive cortisol from your adrenal gland. It manufactures its own supply, on-site. That means your belly can be running its own private stress response, independent of what's actually happening in your life. And it gets worse, because cortisol does something specific to fat storage. It activates an enzyme called lipoprotein lipase, which pulls fat out of your bloodstream and packs it directly into visceral tissue. At the same time, cortisol raises blood sugar, which triggers insulin, and insulin blocks the release of stored fat for energy. So you end up with a closed loop. Cortisol drives fat in, insulin keeps it locked in, and the fat itself keeps manufacturing more cortisol to repeat the cycle. This is Arthur's problem. This might be your problem. It's not about willpower. It's about a hormonal circuit stuck in the on position. Now for the protocol, and this is where Chapter 1 and Chapter 2 work as a pair, because the first move that interrupts this loop happens in the first 10 minutes after you wake up. Before food, before coffee, before your phone. You step outside, genuinely outside, not through a window. And you let natural light reach your eyes for 10 uninterrupted minutes. No sunglasses. You don't need to stare at the sun, you simply need the light hitting your retina. This single act resets a cluster of cells in your hypothalamus called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, your body's master clock, and that clock governs the timing of your cortisol release for the entire day. I know what some of you are thinking right now, Marcus. I have bad knees, bad hips, some mornings I can barely get to the mailbox, let alone stand outside for 10 minutes. This isn't exercise. You can sit in a chair on your porch. You can stand at your doorway. There is zero joint loading required. This is the gentlest possible intervention in this entire video, And it's also one of the most powerful because it's not working on your muscles, it's working on a cluster of neurons the size of a grain of rice that controls your entire hormonal day. But sunlight alone only sets the clock. It doesn't lower the hormone that's already circulating. For that, you need the second piece. And this next mechanism is the one that surprised me the most when I first learned it, because it involves a single nerve that runs from your brainstem all the way down into your gut. The nerve that tells your body it's safe. Eleanor, 72, told me she'd tried everything for her stress, belly-cutting carbs, walking daily, even a sleep track. Nothing moved the needle until someone mentioned her breathing. She laughed at first. She'd been breathing her whole life. What difference could that possibly make? But Eleanor didn't understand that most of us, especially after 60, breathe in a shallow, rapid pattern that keeps a specific switch in the alert position around the clock. That switch is your vagus nerve, and here's the biomechanics of it. The vagus nerve is the primary highway of your parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest branch that opposes your fight or flight response. It runs from your brainstem, through your neck, down through your diaphragm, and wraps around your heart and gut along the way. When you breathe in a specific rhythm, a longer exhale than inhale, you mechanically stretch the vagus nerve with every breath. That stretch sends an electrical signal upward to your brainstem, and your brainstem responds by dialing down activity in your hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, the exact chain of command that releases cortisol in the first place. You are not just calming down emotionally. You are physically manipulating a nerve to turn off a hormone spigot. A study out of a major research university tracked participants with chronic stress markers through a structured, slow-breathing protocol, and the results were stark. The breathing group showed a measurable decline in circulating cortisol, while the control group's levels stayed essentially flat. The breathing itself was the variable that moved the needle. Here's the precise protocol, and pacing matters here more than almost anywhere else in this video. Immediately after your 10 minutes of morning light, sit down somewhere comfortable. Inhale through your nose for a count of 4. Hold gently for a count of 4. No straining, no gripping. Exhale slowly through your mouth or nose for a count of 6. That longer exhale is the mechanical key. It's what stretches the vagus nerve the most. Repeat this for 3 full minutes. That's roughly 12 to 14 cycles. And you don't need to count them, just let the timer run. For those of you worried this is somehow too intense, or wondering if breath holding is safe with blood pressure concerns, this is not a breath hold technique in the aggressive sense. The hold is brief and gentle, never forced, and the entire pattern is designed to lower blood pressure and heart rate, not raise them. If you're on blood pressure medication or have a diagnosed respiratory condition, simply skip the 4-count hold and breathe in for 4, straight out for 6. You still get the majority of the vagal benefit from the extended exhale alone. Here's what most people miss though, and it's the reason sunlight and breathing have to happen in this order, back to back, not separate. Sunlight resets the clock that decides when cortisol should be low. Breathing directly suppresses the cortisol that's already circulating. Do them together, in sequence, and you get a synergistic effect, one that neither habit produces fully on its own. But even this combination only addresses 2 of the 3 points in the loop we talked about in Chapter 1. There's still the tension stored in the body itself, tension that's been quietly telling your nervous system, hour after hour, that you're still under threat. And the way you release that tension has nothing to do with stretching, and everything to do with a movement your body already knows instinctively. The shake nobody told you about. Robert, 65, used to describe himself as wound tight. Not emotionally, physically. His shoulders sat up near his ears. His jaw ached by midday. He tried massage, he tried stretching, and both helped for an hour, maybe 2, before the tightness crept back in. What Robert didn't realize is that his muscles weren't holding tension because they were tired. They were holding tension because his nervous system hadn't gotten the memo that the threat had passed. Here's the mechanism, and it's one most people have never heard explained. Every muscle in your body contains structures called muscle spindles, tiny sensors that report tension levels back to your brainstem constantly, in real time. When you're under chronic stress, those spindles sit in a state of low-grade, sustained contraction. And here's the critical part. That contraction isn't just a symptom of stress, it's a cause of it. Your brain reads sustained muscular tension as confirmation that danger is still present, and it keeps the HPA axis running in response. It's a feedback loop running in the opposite direction from what most people assume. Your body isn't just tense because you're stressed. You stay stressed, partly because your body is tense. This is where a movement pattern that looks almost silly does something genuinely mechanical to your physiology. Full body shaking, the kind you'll see in a dog immediately after it gets out of water, triggers rapid, involuntary discharge of that stored muscular tension through your spindles. It's an instinctive mammalian reset behavior. Most animals do it automatically after a stressful event. Humans, for the most part, have trained themselves out of it. The protocol here is simple and deliberately gentle. Stand with your feet roughly hip-width apart, knees soft, never locked. Let your arms hang loose at your side. Begin shaking gently, not violently, not bouncing hard on your joints, just a light, continuous vibration that you allow to move up through your legs, your torso, your shoulders, and finally your head and neck. 2 minutes is the target. If 2 minutes feels like a lot at first, 30 seconds is a legitimate starting point. The nervous system responds to the pattern, not strictly the duration. If you're picturing this and worrying about your knees or your lower back, here's the reassurance. There is no impact here. Your feet barely leave the floor, if at all. This is not jumping, not bouncing, not high intensity anything. It's closer to how you'd shake a wet umbrella than how you'd jog in place. If a joint genuinely bothers you, you can do this seated in a sturdy chair and let the shake travel through your upper body alone. The muscle spindle response doesn't require your whole body to participate to be effective. By now, you've reset the clock, quieted the hormone directly, and released the muscular signal that was keeping the alarm on. But there's one more piece, and it might be the most important one in this entire protocol, because it doesn't just interrupt cortisol, it predicts, with startling accuracy, how many years you have left. The test your body has been failing without knowing it. There's a movement so simple, most of us haven't thought about it since childhood, and it turns out to be one of the strongest predictors of longevity ever measured in a clinical setting. Getting down onto the floor and getting back up, without using your hands. Researchers tracking thousands of adults over multiple decades found that people who couldn't perform this movement without support were dramatically more likely to die within the following years than those who could. Independent of age, independent of existing health conditions. Here's why this single movement carries so much biological weight. Rising from the floor without your hands requires simultaneous coordination across your hip flexors, your quadriceps, your core stabilizers, your ankle mobility, and your balance. Essentially, your entire musculoskeletal chain tested all at once, under load, against gravity. It's not a niche skill. It's a real-time readout of your functional strength reserve. And critically, for what we're discussing today, successfully performing it sends a specific signal to your brainstem. I am strong. I am mobile. I do not need to be protected. That signal directly opposes the threat detection pathways that keep cortisol elevated. Here's the protocol, and I want you to go slowly, especially the first time. Find a soft surface, a yoga mat, a carpeted floor. Stand with your feet roughly shoulder-width apart. Lower yourself into a squat, chest up, weight settled back into your heels rather than your toes. If you can't get all the way down unsupported, that's completely fine. Hold on to a sturdy chair or countertop on the way down. Once you're seated on the floor, reverse the movement to stand back up, using your hands, your knees, or a chair for support if you need. The goal in the beginning is not to do this hands-free. The goal is simply to do it, safely, repeatedly. Aim for 3 repetitions to start, working toward 5 over the coming weeks as your confidence and strength build. If you're sitting there thinking, Marcus, I have arthritis in my knees, I have a hip replacement, there's no way I'm getting down on a floor. I hear you. And this is not a test you need to pass on day 1, or ever, in its hardest form. Every modification counts. Using a chair for support the entire way down and up still delivers the coordination signal to your nervous system. It simply reduces the load. The point isn't perfect form. The point is repeated, safe practice of a full-body movement pattern that tells your brain your body is capable, because that message, repeated daily, is part of what shuts the stress response off for good. Close this out with 2 final minutes simply sitting, eyes closed, noticing your breath and your body without trying to change anything. No app, no technique, just quiet attention. It's the shortest part of the ritual, and it's what allows everything you just did, the light, the breath, the shake, the rise, to actually register before the noise of the day begins. 5 pieces, under 20 minutes total. And together, they hit every single point in the loop. We opened this video with the clock, the hormone, the muscle, and the signal your brain uses to decide whether you're safe. Before we get to the one habit that can double all of this, I want to ask you something, and I'd genuinely like you to answer honestly in the comments. So here's my honest question for you, and I'd like you to sit with it for a second before you scroll past. Where does your stress actually live in your body right now? Is it your shoulders, pulled up tight without you noticing until someone points it out? Is it your stomach, that low hum of unease you've just learned to live with? Is it your sleep lying awake at 3 a.m. with your mind running through problems that felt smaller in daylight? Tell me in the comment. Not the general answer, the specific one. Because I read these, and I promise you, whatever you're carrying, someone else reading this comment section is carrying the exact same thing and needs to know they're not the only one. Now, the force multiplier, the one habit that, if you add it, roughly doubles what everything else in this video is doing. And it costs nothing, requires no equipment, and takes about 30 seconds. Cold water on your face and wrists, immediately after your ritual, before you shower. Here's the mechanism. Cold exposure to the face triggers something called the mammalian dive reflex, an ancient, involuntary response where cold water, sensed by receptors around your eyes and forehead, triggers an immediate, powerful spike in vagal activity. Your heart rate drops within seconds. It's one of the fastest, most reliable ways to activate the parasympathetic system that exists in human physiology, and unlike ice baths or cold plunges, it requires no tolerance building and carries essentially none of the cardiovascular risk that concerns people with blood pressure issues. Splash cold water on your face for about 30 seconds over the sink is fine right after your mindfulness minutes, before your coffee, before your shower. That's it. Layer that onto everything else you just learned, and you're compounding the vagal activation from your breathing with an entirely separate physiological pathway, stacking two independent "you are safe" signals into the same 10-minute window. If you made it this far in this video, I want to say something to you directly, because it matters more than any protocol I've described. You are already in a small minority. Most people your age hear information like this and let it pass through them interesting for 4 minutes, forgotten by dinner. You didn't do that. You're still here, which tells me you're the type of person actively investing in the years ahead of you, rather than passively waiting to see what they bring. That puts you in a different category entirely. Call it the top 5%, the people who treat their own biology as something worth studying, not just something that happens to them. Here's what I need you to understand, and I want this to stay with you long after this video ends. Your biology does not read your birth certificate. It cannot see the number written on your driver's license. It responds, moment to moment, day to day, to the signals you send it, light or darkness, tension or ease, threat or safety, stillness or movement. That's it. That's the entire input system. A 68-year-old who sends the right signals consistently can have a stronger stress response, a smaller waistline, and a sharper mind than someone half their age who never learned to listen to their own physiology. Age is a number your calendar tracks. Vitality is a conversation your hormones are having, and you get to decide what you say. You don't need to fix everything today. You need to start with the first 10 minutes tomorrow morning, the light on your eyes, the breath, the shake, the rise, the stillness. That's the whole ask. One morning, then another. Your body has been waiting for the right signal. Give it one tomorrow. Strong biology isn't inherited. It's instructed. Go instruct yours.